Well, if you sell for dollars,
Oh,
like, how are
man.
you going to get those dollars? Like those dollars are obviously part of the legacy financial system, so that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, what would you go? You just go around, I guess, asking people for if you're going to purchase things like, hey, I'll buy this $5 million thing from you, but I'm only going to do a Bitcoin. I
Yeah.
mean, you'd probably get numerous people to do it. If like,
Yeah.
hey, I want that 5 million bucks. The normie, like, okay, like I'll do it. So yeah, I mean,
Maybe
that's
not today, but
What are you
in a
going to
couple of
buy?
years for sure.
oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to buy though? Like, let's say for example, you have $1 billion worth of Bitcoin.
Hmm.
You're probably going to buy properties. How many
Yeah.
properties do you need,
I'd buy
right?
property
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Property.
One. Yeah. Like, hey, I want a boat. I want a property, one of
That's
a couple things, and that's it,
that's just you living your life though, right? That's
Correct.
not you.
Yeah.
That's not
Yes.
you exiting.
Yes.
That's more like
Thank you. Yeah.
you have your
It was
Bitcoin and
just
you
living
want to
your
live your
life.
life.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's like I'm okay with that. That's perfect.
Yes.
That's smart, right? What else are
Yep.
you're doing it to save time. You're doing it to save. I mean, your life. You're preserving your
Right.
life in a
Living
way,
your life. Yeah, exactly. And then you're just
and
preserving the
that's
rest. Yeah. Yep.
extremely valuable. But like, if you're
Yes.
just selling because you're thinking that the FBI is involved now, and I don't want to hold Bitcoin anymore. I don't know. I don't think.
Right. Right.
I,
And that is interesting. Yeah.
I think kind of where a lot of Bitcoiners, I don't know what the audience would be like here in terms of this, but like you guys seen businesses before where they vertically integrate and they kind of control their whole the inflows, where everything goes, everything that all their partners with everything. I kind of foresee that for people, maybe not at this stage today, but like in the next couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, I think that's going to be a big focus for Bitcoiners is kind of doing vertical integration
Hmm.
in their own life where they control their own food, they control their own water, they control pretty much as many aspects of their life as they can just because they've lost complete trust in the system. And I really don't know what that's going to look like because I think that there's going to be a lot of people that remain stuck in that system by choice or not. And I think Bitcoiners more than anything in the future are just going to have choice. That's what I see. Choice. That's Bitcoiners' biggest thing in the future is having choice.
That's the key. So sorry. I have a family friend who's selling a condo and they want to leave. I was just thinking, that's your wealth, right? Like that's their savings. They held it for years. They're leaving and now they're forced to sell it at whatever the price the market is going to give. And they have no choice. They can't take it with them. And I think that's one of the massive advantages of Bitcoin over really anything else, right? If you're leaving, like they want to go back to they want to go back to India, so they're from India. They want to go back. They want to go back to the land that they have and all that. But now they have this condo. They bought it at a certain price and they expected it to like go up in value. But now the market's down and they can't take the condo with them. And holding on to it, think about the headache. You have to deal with tenants. You have to deal
Especially
with the
from
property.
that far away.
Right. It's impossible. And you don't know who's trying to scam you. You don't know who's trying to screw you over. And like think about the headache there. Whereas if they just bought Bitcoin, they just take the private keys with them. And actually, Brendan, that's a conversation that maybe I listened to your podcast with Mike Green. That's a conversation that maybe he should have. And like that's something he should try to understand because I don't think he even has thought that far into Bitcoin.
Who's
I
Mike
think
Green?
that's really just a big macro investor over the last 15, 20 years. And, he just, to Rajat's point, like I would interview him. I would just try to interview him and just like, hey, what are your thoughts in the world? What's going on? And they just started coming after me like middle of the interview of like, he had a bone to pick with Bitcoiners. Let's just say that. And, he hasn't done all his homework all the way down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And so, just thinking, again, all of us have thought of this for 1,000 hours minimum, right? Thousands of hours going down to their logical conclusion, taking all this angle. And you can tell like someone like Peter Schiff or Mike Green or, these really smart guys, like even a George Gammon, really, really smart dudes. And they just haven't taken all, and part of it too, honestly, is I think there's a lack of faith in some of it too. Like a lot of these guys lack the faith in the sense of like humanity and what humanity will do, which I don't begrudge people. Like I know a lot of people are black-pilled right now, but it's just the incentives of the society that are architecture. It's the architecture of deceit right now. And that's what fiat is. It incentivizes everyone to be at each other's throats, long story short, where Bitcoin flips that upside down. But these guys, like, they seemingly are trying to fit like the old world into Bitcoin, and like it just doesn't make sense to them. It's just Bitcoin's just another asset. Maybe that's the best way to say it. They just think it's another asset, and they're just like, well, and they're trying to fit it in round peg square hole, and like they're still on the Titanic. They're just still on the Titanic, and they're just like, yeah, it's still going down. And like Mike Green, he was just arguing with me over and over again that we need to educate people. Capitalism is working great. The dollar is there to destroy debt, and that's what it's designed to do. That's what it's for. People need to learn that. They need to understand that. And capitalism incentivizes you to learn that. And if you don't, you're on the street. The problem with that, as we know, though, and I asked him 3 or 4 times, and he would not answer the question, multiple different ways I was trying, is I was like, Mike, I agree with you. We need to re-educate people, but the system won't allow that. The incentives of the system don't align with what you're saying and what I want. What you and I want that's not what the state wants. The governments don't want that. Central banks don't want that. Clearly, government-run education, pop culture, media, that's not the alignment. The alignment is to go the other direction. So how do you out-propagandize the state? You have to rip, in our minds here, it's rip the money printer away from all these people running things, whether they're benevolent or malignant people or not. It doesn't matter. Like the natural ebb and flow of the state is to just get more and more power. History has shown us this for thousands of years. So it's not that one person's evil. There's 10 or 1,000 people that are evil in government. It's just the natural flow of government. But if you take that mechanism away, then it starts to heal. It's just Jesus and the money changers coming in. And the 2 times he got really mad, when Joe and I talked about this yesterday, is when he kicked the money changers out of the temple. And then what happened? The blind, the weak, the lame, those that were the lowly of society, the meek, the humble, it started to naturally heal, and they slowly came back into the temple as he drove the bad people out, in essence, the money changers, the banking cartel. And so it shows you that the incentives are flipped upside down, and a lot of people, they just assume they start on first base. Like, right, they're playing the game, they start on first base, and they're not starting from first principles. And that's the hardest part. They know so much that isn't so. And they know so much of this old system, Peter Schiff, Mike Green, George Gammon. God loves them. These people like George Gammon has spent thousands of hours studying the plumbing of this old system. Jeff Snyder, thousands of hours, Eurodollar University and all this stuff. Brilliant dudes. Way smarter than me. And, like 4 of me would equal probably one of these guys' IQ. But that's the problem. Bitcoin's not an IQ test. It's an ego and humility test. And that's where a lot of people fall short. So
that's the whole thing there. Like that's the whole thing with guys like that, is it seems like the longer they've been in something like that, the more time they've allocated to something like that.
Sunk cost fallacy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
100%.
they can't see anything else other than that. And the more invested they are in it, the less likely they are to find something new, because then it seems like they've kind of wasted their whole life.
100%.
Right? Like Bitcoiners, if you want to understand Bitcoin, you pretty much have to start from zero. You have to go in with a completely empty mind, because it's so much different than the system that we've grown up in here. And guys like that, their head's full. And
they've done well.
Stuff. Not wrong.
Yeah. Right.
It's just not what's going to be.
And that's why
it's just ego, right? It's like it keeps them in it, and it stops them from thinking. Like for him, for example, I know that he said that his wife actually suggested that they buy Bitcoin at $25. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't want to admit to her that he's wrong. Maybe he was like, "Oh, I know about finance. You shut up. Stop suggesting stupid things to me. We're not going to do the stupid shit that you're saying." And now, like, he has to admit to her, like, "Hey, I was wrong," and he's not willing to do that, right? And the conversation that he was having there with you, Brandon, it really felt like he was just trying to show you, no, you're young. You don't know.
100%.
Shit. You don't have experience.
Yeah, 100%.
I've gone through it. I've gone through like that. It was like, that meme, old man yells at cloud.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it seemed like. He's trying to tell you, nope, get out of this scam. You made money from it. You got lucky. And he doesn't understand it. He doesn't want to admit it. Like I think that's the people in the old system, they can't get away from that. And they need to tell us, like, oh no, you don't know shit. You're a dummy. You're young and stupid. Respect your elders. Like, that's the way they think, right?
100%.
And they can't get away from that. And that's exactly what it was trying. Like, from that conversation, I listened to the whole thing. That's exactly what it seemed like. He was like, "Oh, sell your Bitcoin."
He's like, "Get on the crusade." I was like, "What's the crusade to you?"
Yeah. And he, like, I don't know. It felt like he just wanted you to bow down to him.
Yeah. Yes. In the the problem is the pragmatism, their pragmatism, which I would say all those guys are pragmatic guys in general, the Schiff, Gammon, Jeff Snyder, Mike Green, but their pragmatism leads into that blackpilling. It leads into this lack of faith. It leads into like missing the visionary nature of life. And I think Bitcoiners, we can tend to be too utopian and too visionary at times, but someone has to push that Overton window, and that's what a lot of Bitcoiners are. We're the ones pushing the Overton window. Not that every single thing we say is going to turn out exactly like that, but the problem with like Mike Green, this conversation, it was he was just accepting life the way it was. It was just like, well, governments have the control of the printer, so don't even worry about it. And I was like, that's for me, like, whoa. Like, money was long way before governments, and it's gonna be long after governments. And that's the thing where right there's a schism. There's a rupture of what we believe and what that Gen X, or a lot of the Gen X's, the boomers, a lot of boomers don't even get into it. They don't even care. I mean, like it's just, but like this Gen X crowd that for whatever reason, they have a really hard time and really combat. I've talked about this with Dr. Jeff Ross a lot. And he's like, I don't know what it is, man. Like a bunch of my Gen X compadres here, they can't humble themselves to it, and they can't go down and do the thought experiments with it. And they just accept it the way it is, how it is now. And it's like, you do realize that someone came along at some point in society and said, this is what I'm doing now. And then everyone else started conforming to it. We don't have to play that game. I can be that person. We can be that people say, no, we're going a different way. And guess what? Everyone starts conforming to that new path. And that's the thing that these guys they can't understand it. They just like, this is the way it's always going to be. We're always going to have the US dollar. It's always going to be here. And this is what it does right this second. It's like, well, it didn't do that 50 years ago, 55 years ago. In 71, it had a different purpose, and in 1913, there was a different purpose. So it keeps changing. And you're telling me that it won't change ever. Like, it's just like, this is what it is. Educate people in the system as it is now. It's just, like you said, Rajat, he wanted like me to bow down to it and just be like, you agree with me. And it's like, no, I don't at all. I agree in the sense that we need to educate people, but it's a very different world and how we're going to do that. The incentives don't align with how to do that now. Clearly, we need to flip the system upside down in order to actually incentivize people and show people. I mean, I guess that's maybe more of it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We have to show people the way, be the example, see what Bitcoin does, and as it builds and as it grows. And you're not going to just tell people this is what it does clearly. So anyway, I
think it's like the ego thing is a huge thing. I think the ego death is like a massive thing. But if you think about it even more closely, like the people that are, because you mentioned Gen X, and I also witnessed that Gen X is right now between like 45 and 60 years old, around that age range. If you think about that age, that's like your prime of your career. That's like the top of the career ladder, where you are the deepest into whatever you are. You are considered the expert. You are the one that is training the new people. Like, you are the top of the ladder, because after that you're retiring, and before that you're young. And so I try to describe it as the legacy lens. I don't know if this makes sense, but it, like, you are in a system and you're going so deep, and so you're such an expert in a system that you don't really see the outside of it. And so if you are in TradFi, you are working in a fund, you're working for a bank, you're working in like the macro economy, you're so deep ingrained in this fiat system, in this TradFi system, that it's almost impossible to look like, how can it not be there? Like the meme, the fish saying, hey, the water is nice today, and the other fish is saying, like, what is water? That's kind of for me the legacy lens, where those Gen Xers that are like 45 to 60 years old, and hey, there are a lot of Bitcoiners in that crowd too, that actually got it, and that are not victim of the legacy. Like that's huge. And so it's like, I think that's what the main problem is. They think they know it all, and they don't even are aware of like the outside world. And it's sad to see, but honestly, I don't know. I'm no longer that concerned about orange pilling people. I don't know how you guys think about that, but I'm not, like, for me, Bitcoin is a force of nature, and you either go with the force of nature or you will be rolled over by it. Like that's literally how I look at it. And if someone doesn't get it, or someone like spits on it, I'm like, I only feel bad for the people listening to you and not for you. Like that's kind of how I look at it these days.
I think there's a group of people that are open to understanding it, and I feel like those are the people that I'd want to like target with education. If I can aim at those people, then it's all worth my time, right? Whereas there are people out there who they just think they know everything, right? And they don't want support. I mean, there's 8 billion people on Earth, right? If you can, my goal is to, if I can orange pill 1 million people, that's a very small percentage. But if I can do that, I feel like that can really change things. But I mean, most
Incredible.
people like it, in that group is just mostly people who just have savings and they have they're open minded and they have the right mindset towards money and they're willing to learn, right? And that can exclude all the people who are just closed minded.
And part of this too, sorry, Jory, I might have cut you off. It was just, we started with the stretch and what's going on here, and stretch is, we can circle back around to that too a little bit, but we've talked a lot about that with nuance, right? A lot of people that are older, they might like stretch. There's, like we said, we talked about boomers, we talked about Gen X. They might be sitting there with a bunch of cash USD and they're just like, hey, I just want 11.5%. I want some exposure to Bitcoin. I don't really care about this freedom thing. I don't really care about self-custody. I don't really know what's going on. And so I think that's where a lot of this, again, this Gen X thing, these four guys, the Jeff Snyders, all the things we talked about too, there's a great book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. So if anyone who's read that book, phenomenal book, he talks about these different eras of, if you weren't born in this 9-year span, you weren't an oil baron. You just didn't have the chance. And this is the whole, like, life isn't fair. Everyone wants, like, life to be fair and like, oh, how come it's not all equal? And it's like, well, we're equal people, but there's not equal outcomes, and like everyone's made differently purposely. Otherwise, we'd all be robots. What's the fun in life, right? Like the law of polarity. Jordan, you and I talked about this yesterday. It's the law of polarity here. Maybe it was Robin. I talked to Robin yesterday too. Can't remember. 5 conversations yesterday. So it's Monday's my heavy day, boys. So I'm recuperating a little bit today. This is my easy day with one. And so you had this world where this generation of like 20 to 40 or 20 to 45, we're very blessed because we just happened to land on jackpot. Like we just happened to land on that time when we needed it. Because like you guys said, the Gen X didn't need it like we need it. The boomers don't need it like this generation does, like millennials and Gen Z. And so they lived a good life in the sense of they had that opportunity. Things, there was milk and honey flowing. And I was like, oh, everyone's let's go. Rates are coming down for 40, 50 years. And then we were born into just chaos everywhere, just whatever. It was 9/11. It was, constant, .com crash, like all the way up to GFC and COVID and all that stuff. So now it's like, we are the ones that put in the work because we're looking around like, this doesn't make any sense at all. Like, what is happening? So we're the ones that put the work in. And yes, are we younger? Do we not have as much lived experience in life? Yes, Mike Green, yes, George Gammon. Yes, that is true. However, that's what always happens. Necessity is the mother of all invention. And so we're sitting here, like, we don't have any choice. So we put the work in, and now life's starting to go and turn a different way. And so the Malcolm Gladwell part of it, again, was just, like you look at the oil barons, you look at Bill Gates, you look at the .com or the .com boom and all that. None of us could have done that. We weren't born yet. Again, life's not fair. Like we can't go invent Microsoft now. And that's just how life works. But you can be part of Bitcoin now at whatever age. Maybe we're the best for it in the sense of the 20 to 45. We have some money, we have some experience, whatever, we're working. And so we're the ones in that place. And then the other thing I'll say too is, like, again, Bitcoin's back at 80 or 80,000 or 82,000 or whatever. And it's like, I thought it was dead. I just tuned out the last 6 months. I've been here having fun with you guys. I didn't even know. I didn't know Bitcoin is a thing anymore. I thought it was dead. And here we are. It's back, guys. It's like, at what point do people wake up? It's either going to zero or it's going to infinity. It's binary. There is no middle ground. And that's what I think that people are just having such a hard time. It's breaking brains everywhere. And this, just more, the pain will increase on people. We will show people the way through how we act and as an example and just being a good example. And people will build our cities, will build our freedom citadels or freedom cities and all this stuff. And people will eventually come that direction. Just like we see the states, and people laugh. It's like, look at the states. You have people leaving blue states all over the United States, going to red states. Interesting. That's pretty fascinating. So the brain drain happens. The brain drain is going to happen from the legacy world into the Bitcoin world as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I'm looking at these chats here. It's pretty funny to watch. Before I got into Bitcoin, I didn't even realize that there was different generations, but I see from everybody's perspective now. And I think that one thing I've seen in the last couple of years more than anything else is kind of what we were talking about there with Mike Green. It's like the longer you spend in a system, the more you learn about that system, the fuller your head is, and there's less space. Like there's only so much things that you can think about and how much energy you can exert into each topic each day. So I get it. And I think that that's why for baby boomers and Gen X, I think that more than anything else, I'm very impressed with them, because Brandon, you and I have talked about this before in terms of like people become their environment. people become their environment, whether it's a fish in water, they obviously are pretty good at that environment, or just having been brainwashed and put through this system. And baby boomers, Gen X, they've spent longer in that system. That environment's more ingrained in who they are. And so I think for any of them to kind of break free of that system
most
is
impressive,
a huge thing.
Easily.
It's rare.
Yep.
But I think both those two categories there. And I think that's another thing I always come back to too, is like, I think millennials kind of were born in the sweet spot. Gen X kind of in there as well, where we have enough capital that we can allocate to Bitcoin, and we have time, I guess, to enjoy that eventually.